Coogs house. I'm sick as a dog. I can't talk for very long without coughing. But the Coogs win, so we've got to talk about it.
You are Locked On Coogs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Coogs, daily podcast all about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth. And whether you're a Houston fan or just a hater of the game step by, thank you for making Locked On Coogs. At this point, it might be your last listen of the day on a Friday night, maybe first on a Saturday morning. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports, but more on that later. But the Houston Cougars are in the win column, folks, and that's exciting. I'm trying not to talk too crazy. My voice is not great. My throat is not great, but I did not want to miss a chance to talk about the Houston Cougars winning football games. They don't do that often enough anymore. Story of this game was Zeon Chriss. I want to talk about him some as well. I want to look forward some as well, but I also just want to get into the recapping of this football game. I was as surprised as anyone when Houston came out after saying all week they're going to rotate quarterbacks just like last week and put Zeon Chriss out there from the first snap. It's not like TCU wasn't prepared for Zeon Chriss, but they looked like they ran a whole different offense for Zeon. Oh, whoa, y'all have already commented a lot here. Someone asked about Tillman paying some money. Someone said about eating crow. I think a lot of people are doing that tonight. Fritz and the team came together. That was a program win from down under. The past 2 weeks have rescinded into the dark days of what is Houston football. Go Coogs, very proud of them. Chris played well. Willie Fritz should have had the change long ago. Now I might have to play musical chairs with these QBs. I don't think there's any musical chairs to be played. I think we decided that one tonight. But whatever it takes to have the offense have some life. Will says, someone on Twitter pointed out they're 2-0 in Southwest Conference play. Let's bring that back. Let's bring back the Southwest Conference. Glad to be celebrating. Let's celebrate some. Miguel says more of the same. Go Cougs. We'll talk some about the defense and the 200 points out here as well. But man, oh man, what a game. As I mentioned, they start the game with Zeon Chriss at quarterback, and it's not that TCU didn't know he would play. They obviously had to know he would play. They said they're going to rotate quarterbacks. It's that when he came in, they ran a whole different offense than they really let him do before. They let him throw the football. And if you were listening to this week's shows, when Martin and I were breaking down quarterbacks, we're talking like the system they were running for Zeon didn't really fit Zeon. The system running for Donovan didn't really fit Donovan. And truthfully, they each needed a different system. They went with Zeon for all but a drive of the football game, and they ran the offense that worked for him. He was 15 of 18 for 141 yards and a touchdown. The touchdown pass was a beautiful back of the end zone fade. I ate some crow on that one. I thought that's a tough throw for him, and he ended up doing pretty well there. I'm always happy to be wrong if it means the Cougs are good. So you're not going to do any gotcha on me on that kind of stuff. I'm happy about that. He obviously also had 97 yards on the ground, helped in big part by the 71-yard long touchdown run. I don't think that anyone's talking enough about Rashawn Sanford. The dude ran tough tonight. He got hit in the backfield a couple times. I'm interested in the analytical view what his yards after contact are. He only ended up with 38 yards, did have a touchdown in the toss play out to the left side in the third quarter. I think it was third quarter. But regardless, Sanford ran the ball really tough tonight. And if he's going to bring that duality, Burnett was back. He was 12 carries, 26 tough yards. That kind of strength at running back's a big deal. Stacey Snead did not have his best night in the backfield tonight, but we know he's got that explosive play capability. You got the wide receivers involved, and I like seeing, I believe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 guys get 17 catches. That's really evenly spread out. Now, admittedly, would I like to see Joseph Manjack get a couple more balls, or to see Boogie Johnson get another ball, or Jonah Wilson get another ball? Absolutely. But on the whole, spreading it out evenly like that really kind of kept the defense on their toes. Devin Williams having a nice touchdown grab, obviously, is a big deal, but I thought Boogie Johnson had a nice move on a screen pass. I thought Joseph Manjack had a nice catch on the right sideline. I thought Malik Carr made some good work once he got it. He was moving. He almost scored, actually, down in the red zone. He's a big, big body. I wonder if he took off like the basketball player he used to be at Michigan State, if he could actually get in the end zone on that one on another try. A big part of this one, if we're doing instant reaction kind of stuff, is also the defense. The defense forced 4 turnovers, 2 fumbles, 2 picks, 2 of those picks by A.J. Haulcy. Haulcy looked like a pro on Friday night. Big hits across the board. Great coverage out of Haulcy. A couple interceptions as well. They also had 2 fumbles forced. I believe one of those was McLaurin, one was Morris, but I'm open to being corrected on that. Yeah, the defense just played lights out. I know that they gave up 19 points, and some people would say, like, Parker, that's still a decent amount of points to a bad football team. TCU's been a bad football team, but not because they can't score, right? They lose 66-42 and stuff. I mean, this is an offense that scored a lot of points, and Houston kept them under 20. Tremendous, tremendous, tremendous showing out of the Houston Cougars. I mentioned Haulcy. I need to also mention Keith Cooper. Keith Cooper had, I think it was a sack and a half, or maybe it was just a TFL. He also had a great pass rush that forced a holding call kind of in clutch time down the stretch. Cooper gets some accolades for that for sure. Hard to look past that as anything but a positive. I'm interested in the chat. Who do you have as your players of the game? We got to hand one of those out this weekend with Roy. I think it's got to be Zeon, but I'm open to hearing other options. So let me know who you think your player of the game is. Comments, X, whatever you got. We'll see who we got. I think it's got to be Zeon, but I'm open to hearing otherwise. Jack Martin. Can we talk about Jack Martin? Jack Martin came in the game after having kicking trouble the last couple weeks. Steve says it should be A.J. Haulcy. That's fair, Steve. After Houston's had some kicking trouble the last couple weeks, he went 3 for 3 on field goals and 3 for 3 on extra points. And frankly, those field goals are important, not just because, I guess with just touchdowns, Houston would have won 21-19. But the 2-score game aspect towards the end really kind of kept this thing at arm's length for Houston. Big, big deal there to get that stuff corrected. Don't act like there wasn't any luck involved in this. Houston did fumble the ball, I believe, 3 times technically, and recovered 2 of them themselves. And then the other one was a penalty of the targeting play when Stacey got popped. That's the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. I'm going to take that every single time. And I want to talk more about what I'll take from Zeon Chriss every single time as well. But first, got to talk to you about our buddies over at FanDuel. America's #1 sportsbook is right now. They got big things going on in the NFL, like this Sunday with the Houston Texans. You can go in and make all kinds of live picks and bets as the game is unfolding. You can check the score, check the stats anytime you get a hunch, and go in the app right next to where you place your bets. They're giving away $200 in bonus bets if you put down a $5 bet. So just go to FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook today. Parker entered Locked On Coogs, and the offense looked new as it beat TCU 30-19. Houston has not scored. Houston scored 30 points against Rice. Is that the only other time? They beat Rice, and I don't think they've scored more than 12 this season besides that, right? Big deal. Coming off of 2 straight shutouts to score 30 points in this one. And it starts to see on Chris. And so I kind of alluded to, this is more of the maybe, I don't know, maybe football folks or whatever, but it looks like Zeon to this point has kind of been limited in what they let him do. And I assumed that meant that there was something mechanical. He mentioned there's something wrong with his shoulder. It's not quite right. He looked like he missed some time at the end of the game on Friday night, right, with some injury in his arm. So, all of that could be happening. And then he went there to start the game against TCU and was balling. Really pushed through whatever pain there was, really on the mark with a lot of throws. Not a whole lot of things where the ball traveled a long ways in the air, wasn't pushing the ball downfield like that, but push it wide enough and vertical enough to get bodies out of the box. And that's really, really important for what he likes to do with his feet. So what I mean by that is he put the ball on the sidelines and like in the intermediate area, 15 yards or so down the football field, enough that the linebackers and safeties had to go out and help cover in space because that's way too much one-on-one area for those guys, right? And so it puts the ball out there, takes those linebackers out of the box, and Zeon Chriss can then get to boogieing. Really, really exciting game from him on that front. Frankly, you got to hope as you watch it that's the way they go the rest of the way here. I think the deal that we saw is we saw what works. We saw a version of this offense that works for Houston. And for all the criticism we've offered of Barbe, and I've offered mine this week, some people offered firmer throughout the week. Everyone's been critical for different reasons, right? This is the kind of thing that you got to build on, and you got to see, okay, well, now we took the guys in the box by going wide. Can we bring them down the line of scrimmage, go over the top of them, right? Get the ball off early, let our guys go run under it, like on a deep shot or something. You've got great wide receivers. What can you do to take advantage of that? Excuse me. Sorry. You also, for what it's worth, won the turnover battle because you fell on your own fumble. So, like, Zeon's got to take better care of the football in terms of running it. I'm sure that's driving Fritz crazy. I'm sure that's frankly part of the reason that he had not played in the game much, or had not played as much before tonight until he got the start. I don't know, guys. I'm just excited that we scored some touchdowns. Like an offense that scores touchdowns changes the entire. It sounds so simple and so obvious, like no duh, Parker. It changes the entire outlook of the season, right? They go to Kansas in 2 weeks. Okay, well, you can win that one and get to 3-4. Suddenly, you've got can you upset an Arizona or a Utah, right? Kind of flip the script a little bit there because those teams are ripe for upsetting. Cam Rising's not playing. Arizona's had a weird year. They played Northern Arizona close, right? What can happen there? You got Baylor happening later this season. They're a dumpster fire, right? All of those things can be happening at once for you. And you seem to have finally found your identity on offense, right? You're going to pull guys out of the box, attack it, pull guys out of the box, attack it, pull guys out of the box, attack it. And both Sanford and Chriss are going to take advantage of those lighter boxes once you've pulled different people's bodies out of them. Really, really, really strong plan. And I say that as a guy that was really, really critical of a lot of movements last week. Now, there was still stuff I didn't like in this game. Like stuff I didn't like. At the end of the half, there was like 50-something seconds left, and then let the clock run out. Maybe it was 40-something. I wish that they'd gone for it there and really pushed it because they had to kick the ball off start second half and stuff like that, or whatever. But a couple more conservative play calls. Played for the field goal at the end with Donovan instead of going for a touchdown to kind of put the needle in it. I should also point out, and Zeon's won the job. I want to say that definitively. Zeon Chriss should be QB1 from here on out, right? Can we get that on the table? That's out there. What Donovan did at the end of this football game, it was a one-score game, 8 points. He comes in, he has not played but one snap the entire game before that. He's obviously going to be incredibly frustrated. He just lost his job on national television. He marched his guys down. He took care of the football. He ran with it tucked. He had one impressive run for a first down along the way and got them set up for the game icing field goal. That kind of leadership is the kind of stuff that everyone likes about Donovan. All those positive things you see people say about him are because of that kid, right? And I know it's easy to overlook that because how excited we all are about Zeon. And again, Zeon has won the job. Zeon should be the starter, right? I'm not trying to make Smith a thing. I just said Zeon should be the starter. But I do think that's like, again, it was a one-score game. Like, that was important, an important part of this as well. And so Zeon Chriss takes over. Zeon Chriss takes control. I think the interesting thing is like the wiggliness of him running the football is going to be something other teams have to account for. And I'm sure there'll be more expansions of that as we go. And as we continue to work through the season, again, you've got at least 2 more very winnable games left. And so, you sit here at, what are we now, 2-4. You got those 2. You flip 1 or 2 more, right? All right. Suddenly you're looking like how close we're going to be to this. That FanDuel over under was set at 3.5. You for what's worth went 4-8 last, trying to prove that you're better than a year ago. So you want to get more than that 4. And doing all of that, I feel like you got to kind of roll with this momentum here. The offense, Zeon Chriss up the gut, beat the too high safety look, and by that, it's separated out because the routes were both China routes on the outside. Took the safeties with him to the sideline. Zeon Chriss watching him fold and took the draw play up the gut. His running back led blocker, and he was off the races. Moments in a game show you like what kind of stuff you really got here. I wonder what kind of deep passing game they're going to bring in, but that's for the future. They got 2 weeks to figure this out. Whatever was wrong with Zeon's arm, whatever soreness, tightness, tendonitis, whatever. I don't know. I don't mean to put words. I don't have a diagnosis, but I see on Twitter here that says Joe Duarte says that Houston quarterback Zeon Chriss says he's been dealing with a shoulder injury suffered in the season opener against UNLV, and he felt great tonight. Right? You remember he didn't play against Oklahoma, and so that makes some sense. I'm playing a little hurt myself these days, and so I do think that you should anticipate more of this going forward, especially if this is him playing with the hurt shoulder, right? That he'll only clean things up as he goes. It's been a while now. It's been back since he transferred. But I talked with David Schultz, Locked On Sunbelt, back when Zeon Chriss transferred. So Locked On Sunbelt is a whole conference show, but Schultz is a Louisiana guy, right? And he had nothing but positive things to say about Zeon, and was really, really trying to stress that this kid is a dual threat quarterback, but acted like he kind of needed to get in the game a little bit, running the ball to kind of get those things going. I think that's hard to do when you're a rotational guy or a backup guy, but you can get in that rhythm more as a starter, and it looked great. I like that. The tale of twos, Chris and Haulcy both wear 2, and that's fun. That's fun. Kenneth Cole points out the whole team, including Donovan Smith, competed. I think that, they all did compete. I did my soliloquy about that earlier, but Sammy says, I don't know. I want to ride the hot hand with Zeon. I'd like to see LA, but for the team to go on the road and get Chris to lead the team, I don't want to rock the boat. I think at some level, everything you've seen ULA do was not as electric as some of the stuff you saw Chris do on Friday night. I'm not saying ULA had never done anything that deserved more time. It was not as electric as some of the stuff Zeon Chriss did on Friday night. It just wasn't. And that's really more of a credit to Zeon. I'm trying to say it as a credit to Zeon, not a discredit to Uwe. Uwe, again, we talked about him with Martin earlier this week, and Martin loved him. Martin worked on the staff for a while. Martin loved him. But Zeon won the job. Zeon won the job. Zeon won the job. Zeon won the job. I want to talk some as well about what this means for Fritz. Getting the first Big 12 win, as I'm seeing a video pop off my timeline here of him getting lifted up and carried, covered with water bottles by the guys. But first, let's talk a little bit about Game Time. The place get tickets. You can download tickets faster today and cheaper with Game Time. Download the Game Time app. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. They got all kinds of cool features. You can toggle to all-in pricing. You can see what the seat's going to look like, what you're going to view is going to be for your comedy show, theater, sports games, and more. You can see what's going to look like in that venue, in that type of event, so you can go ahead and know exactly what you're going to be looking at. All kinds of fun stuff over Game Time. Download the Game Time app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Parker Answer Locked On Coogs here, breaking down a Houston Cougar victory as they beat the TCU Horned Frogs 30-19. I can't believe it's the Horned Frogs. It's just a weird mascot. Houston wins 30-19. Zeon Chriss started. Zeon Chriss balls. And he plays really well. Defense plays tremendous, gets 4 turnovers. They saw a receiver that's going to get like 1,900 yards this season. Held him to 55. Really, really, really strong outing here, right? Anyway, we get to this game, and I want to talk in this last part about kind of some thoughts on what this means for Willie Fritz, because Fritz comes in, he's a guy in his mid-60s. He's worked with coaching ranks. He's won everywhere he's been. But everywhere you go, every level you go up in coaching, it gets more challenging. It's more competitive. The stakes are higher. The talent you're coaching against is higher. The players you're coaching with and against are better, right? And he gets to Houston, who is in the Power Four. But we've talked about before, it has kind of the lowest, and not kind of, it has the lowest budget of any school in the Power Four. And functionally, it's not a whole lot unlike his TCU program, or his Tulane program. But it's just in the Power Four conference. And frankly, it was not left very well for him when he got there. He gets there, and then a bunch of guys transfer out because they don't want to spend what's left of their college careers in a rebuild. And I'm not the guy who gets mad at guys for that. I don't know what I would do in that situation personally. But he gets dealt a raw hand on that. He shows up. His quarterback has shoulder surgery and misses he thought his quarterback has shoulder surgery, misses the offseason. He gets Zeon Chriss in, who is a guy that I think he'd actually recruited at Tulane, and he ends up getting him into Houston's transfer. They get into the first game. He gets banged up in the first game of the season. And so suddenly he's looking around like, what am I going to do here? He rolls through this deal here. He's getting blanked here, blanked there. People are already calling for this might not have been the right call. This might not have been the best hire, etc. And then he's going up to TCU in Fort Worth. TCU's head coach, Sonny Dykes, his 3rd year. He'd been at SMU and Cal. He'd been to a national championship game just 2023, January 23. TCU is a strong program, not their best year, but a strong program typically. A program Houston saw in the CUSA days and all that kind of stuff. And Willie Fritz goes up there and he sees a bunch of former Houston faces on the other sideline. He sees Malcolm Kelly coaching wide receivers, Dorchester, notably. And I actually didn't know if Dana was at the game or not, but his predecessor at Houston, Dana Holgerson, is a defensive analyst at TCU, meaning that Dana's helping scout the opponent's offense or whatever, right? For Avalos, who's supposed to be a decent defense coordinator. It hadn't really worked out for them at TCU with him. And Fritz walks in there, said all week he's going to play 2 quarterbacks, and sees what Zeon does the first drive, and it's like, we're rolling with it, and just goes. That takes some stones, folks. I said here, it says Dana was not at the game. Good to know. But that takes some gusto to say, okay, my first Big 12 win is in the back of this kid that went out there and did it for a drive. Hadn't done it yet this year. Took a little bit different play calling than he's been used to. Hurt his shoulder earlier this year and ran out with it, right? Now, across the board, I think that there'll be a lot of moments from the season that we'll remember. If Houston's really turned this thing around in 4 or 5 years and really doing really, really well, there'll be moments from the season like, I'll remember the time they got shut out twice. I remember this. But the first Big 12 win is also going to be one. Remember that weird Friday night game they won up in Fort Worth? The stadium emptied out with 3 minutes left because Houston took it to them. Right? That's going to be the kind of memory we have with this game forever. It's always been tied to Willie Fritz. However the rest of the career goes, I mean, I guess technically it could go pretty far south, and it's like, well, there was that one day. I don't think it's going to be that, but I guess it could. It's interesting to see his first Big 12 win happen, and I don't mean to spoil the next 2 weeks of content. I think his second one could be soon. Kansas is a down program right now. They haven't beaten an FBS school to play Arizona State tomorrow. That's not looking good. And Houston gets to go up to play them in what is not really a home game for Kansas. They're playing in Kansas City, not Lawrence. I don't know. I think things work out for Willie on this. And I think this is the kind of momentum of mojo that he can ride into the 2025 recruiting class, 2026 recruiting class, but hopefully into the culture he's building with the kids that are already there, right? Look, we stay the course. We do things right. We don't turn it over, like he said. They didn't turn it over. We don't beat the Coogs because he says Coogs should not beat the Coogs. And they, took a penalty on a delayed game right before halftime. But outside of that, they had 4 penalties for 45 yards. It's pretty strong considering where they'd been before that. Not perfect. Fumbles, they had a couple but didn't lose any. So again, not perfect. But if they stay the course and do the things that he's saying to do, the things he's asking them to do, they can be successful. I think it's really, really important. I think it's really, really important they won this game doing those things. And frankly, it never felt in doubt. Once they went up the game with as hot as they were, even when it was a one-score game late, it felt more like it would have been Houston choking the game away than it would have been anything else, right? So I got a handful of comments here. TCU quarterback's not impressive to this guy. U of H essentially flipped the script in the UC game, score early and turnover, then use TCU meltdown penalties and turnovers as well. Steve says the key is to recruit great players and retain the ones you have. If that happens, we need to hope that it's a good trajectory, hope that we only a few keys away from being great. I think they showed some of that tonight as well. Big 12 conference is a weird conference. Anyone can win any given day. We play on Thursdays and Fridays now. We'll be back on Monday morning with Locked on Coogs to be breaking down the game a little bit more. Bye weeks, we'll get into basketball season stuff as well. Locked on Coogs, the prime member of the Locked on Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Coogs.